ham radio. Welcome back, everybody. It's Freddie Mac, your ham radio crusader, and I'm back with another video about AllStar and DVSwitch. DVSwitch is a nice little program that helps you bridge networks together, so to speak, like in AllStar and DMR, or AllStar and YSF, or AllStar and DStar. A lot of different things you can do. Several months ago, when I first started getting back into AllStar and things like that, and my friend James, AA5PD, over there in Shawnee, Oklahoma, and I decided that we wanted to mess around with this DVSwitch thing that we just found out. So that little journey led us to meet up with Brad, November 8 Papa Charlie, up there in Findlay, Ohio, who happens to be a wizard at DVSwitch, but he's more of a wizard with AllStar and Linux and you name it. And with his help, we were able to get it together. Plus, a few other folks were in the mix. I don't remember them all because James got this working before I did, and then we both use it almost daily. Mine stays constantly bridged on my AllStar node 58176. But I tested it out today on this node just to put a configuration together for Brandmeister, and then we'll do another video later for the configuration for TGIF, and hopefully a configuration for YSF. Now, don't get me wrong, I am not a genius at AllStar or DVSwitch, even less at DVSwitch, but this configuration worked for me. If I'm doing something wrong, put it down in the comments. If I could do something better, put it down in the comments. Shoot me an email, kd5fmu@gmail.com. I'm good on QRZ. I'm here to learn just like the rest of us, but I'm here also to pass on what I've learned. Now, is this for everybody? Maybe not. I'm betting probably not. But it's a neat little feature that AllStar does, and I'd like to show it to you today. So stay tuned. DVSwitch on AllStar node. HamVoIP version 7.3. Okay, everyone, it's Freddie Mac, and here we go. This is a fresh install of AllStar. Now, most of this will apply if you already have your AllStar node up and running and configured, but I'm going to preface all of this with this little caveat. Back up your SD card now. Make a mirror image of it and copy it onto another SD card and set that aside. Because if we goof this up, you're right back where you was and you're going again. It's the smart play. But do that first. And number two, I'm not responsible for anything that you do wrong to your node. If you follow all of these directions and the mistakes that I make and not make them, you should be good to go. I want to help you as much as possible because this is a neat little feature for your AllStar node. But if you crater it, you're the one typing everything in, not me. I don't want to be that guy, you know, like, hey, do this, but if you screw it up, I'm not going to help you. I'm not that guy. But let's get it done right together. Okay, let's continue on. All I've done so far on this install is configure the root password, performed a system update, I changed the primary node number, I set the time zone, I left the host name as the default of AlarmPi, I did the wired Ethernet networking, and I changed it to static instead of DHCP. You can leave that however you wish. DHCP is easier, but I don't want my IP address to ever change on my internal network. I want to know where to go every time I connect to my AllStar node. Wi-Fi interface networking I haven't touched. I haven't had a lot of success with Wi-Fi on the AllStar node, and that's where I got to confer with my guru. It just doesn't seem to work for me that well. I left the secure shell port of 222 at the default, and the rest of it, and I've also done some simple USB settings. We won't cover that here because today we're here to talk about DVSwitch. This is first time setup stuff, and since I configure mine with the TYT TH9000D, the default settings work almost immediately, and I just have to adjust the receive audio usually. So let's go to the start the bash shell interface. And normally you would start here at the root, but I've already been in there a little bit moving around, and we've got to set up our Supermon 1. We're not going to mess with Supermon 2, but we will need Supermon 1 to work for us to get this DVSwitch configured. But we've got to install DVSwitch first. But before we do anything else, we're going to set up Supermon 1. And the first thing we're going to do is go cd etc asterisk. And then we're going to go nano manager.conf. And we're going to spell it right. Nano manager.conf. We're going to get into the manager file and we're going to scroll down just a little ways. And right here's our first stop. And this is on the initial configuration of a new node. It's going to say in display name, this is web enabled, is not, or is commented out. We're going to comment it in because this will come in handy later. But since we're here, we might as well just do it now. The bind address, we're going to comment the first line out and comment in the second line. This will help us later on. And then we're going to come down here to admin and secret equals, and for this node, this password will be password 2023, and password is capitalized. So we're going to Control X, hit Y to yes save, enter to exit. That gets that configured. Now we need to go to, and after we've made the changes to manager.conf, we want to restart the asterisk server by typing asterisk.sh. Hit enter, and that will restart our asterisk server. So now we want to go to cd server http supermon. See what we got in there, and we're going to want to nano the allmon file, allmon.ini. Now this first node you see here is 1998. We're going to change this to our primary node 576.333. We're going to leave the username as admin and change the password to password 2023. We're going to leave that one the same, but we're going to come down here to 1999. And we're going to use that username of admin and change that password to the exact same password. I don't know if this is required to make them exactly the same, but it seems to work for me every time, so I'm going to leave it like that. Now I'm going to come down here to all nodes, and I'm going to change 1998 to 576.333. That's our primary public node on this setup. We're going to leave LS nodes, IRLP status, and ham VoIP alone for right now. We're going to Control X, hit yes to save, enter to exit. That's correct. We've got to set this internal password. Right here is the command line we're going to use. So from this exact same prompt, we're going to put that in. We're going to hit space, type in admin because that's the username of our node. Hit enter. And we're going to type in the exact same password again, just so it's easy to remember for this tutorial. And then type it in again to make sure you get it right. And it is added. Now you can add other usernames in here if you'd like, but we're not going to do that. So we're going to jump right to our Supermon. So this address is 192.168.1.205 for this particular setup. Stroke Superman or / and not Superman. I keep saying that. Supermon, which is short for Super Monitor. And voila, here is our Supermon 1 page. Now here's what's easiest for me. I like to hit all nodes. That way they both show up. And I'm going to log in. We're going to try our username and password that we created. And click on login. If you just hit enter, you have to refresh the page before you can actually show that you're logged in. But it's just easier just to click it. And you can update your password if you want. Now, our nodes are showing. You will see this drop-down window right here next to your, what I like to call, text window or DTMF window, which is not just for DTMF. But you see this drop-down window now, and both of your nodes show up. This will come into play later on. But now that we have this functioning, we can move on with our DVSwitch install. These notes will be in the description, and there will be show notes that you can download, PDF style. Okay, now let's go back into our AllStar node and let's hit CD enter. That way we're back to the root directory. Let's clear the screen so that we can see what we're doing. And we're going to copy this command line right here. Hit copy, come back to our SSH session and paste that in. That's just a right click on the mouse. And we got our command in there. We're going to hit enter. And it's going to download DVSwitch. Okay, now here's their caveat. This is not a fresh install of HamVoip image, which technically it is, and I don't know what they mean by not a fresh install. But nonetheless, they're basically saying if you break it, you get to keep both pieces. God bless them. Isn't that something? The gift that keeps on giving. Are you sure you want to run this on a working HamVoip system? 1 for yes, 2 for no. We're pretty sure. That's why we made our backup copy, right, folks? You did make your backup copy, correct? Well, if you didn't, shame on you. Or, you know, I'm a glutton for punishment. I just love configuring HamVoip AllStar. It's who I am. So we're going to hit number 1, hit enter. And away it goes. Now, we're going to be here for a minute. This takes a little while. All right. Now, the DVSwitch server install is complete. Please reboot. Please reboot. So we're going to go REBOOT and hit enter. And we are rebooting our AllStar node. And just like that, our AllStar node has rebooted. So we can get back into our SSH session. Now, this is an important thing you want to remember when doing a fresh install of DVSwitch onto a HamVoip version of AllStar. For some reason, DVSwitch goes into your manager.conf file and alters your password. So this is like the first thing I like to do after the first install reboot. We're going to go into number 9, get into that bash shell interface, and we're going to cd etc asterisk spelling is fundamental. Hit enter, nano manager.conf, and we're going to scroll back down here to admin. Can you see right there? For some reason, it adds the letters LLCGI in front of the password. I don't know why it does that. There's probably a very good reason that I'm not aware of. This is the method that I know. It works for me, so we're going to take that back out. Hit Control X, yes to save, enter to exit. Because if we don't change that, then we can't get back into our Supermon. Now, we've got to go in and configure our DVSwitch server. So we're going to change our directory to user local DVS, and then we're going to run the DVS command. I always like to hit directory and just see what's in there, for goodness sakes. But let's run DVS. And this is the first thing that you get from the DVSwitch first time setup menu. Do you want to change the language settings now? You can do it later. This menu is under tools. I like to hit yes because I don't know what exact language it's defaulted at. I'm sure it's English, but I don't know that. So I hit yes. But then it takes me here, so hey, it is what it is. This is the tools menu. I guess this is where we could go configure something else for language. Select language for DVSwitch menus. I guess it's there. Huh, I guess all we have is English. All right, I'll take this. All right, let's go back to the main menu. There we go. And we're going to do initial configuration. This process will ask call sign, DMR ID, USRP port, hardware AMBE for INI files. So let's get moving. Our call sign today is KD5FMU. We're going to hit OK. Now, this is the CCS7 DMR ID. This is the DMR ID that you get from radioid.net. Mine just happens to be 314-3399. We're going to hit OK. Now, You want to put in your DMR ID plus 2 numbers that are unique to this setup. If you've set up if you have set up a PyStar before or other similar device that logs on to Brandmeister or to TGIF or another DMR network, you always have to put in what they call an SSID. I call it a unique suffix. You can use 00 all the way up to 99. For this application, we're going to use, so I'm going to change that 3143399 and add the 88 like I wanted to. Tab down to OK, hit enter. Now this asks for DStar module, which I just leave at the default because I don't use DStar. I don't use NXDN. I just leave it blank and hit OK. USRP port. Okay, and for this setup, I usually just leave it blank. None is the default. Go hit OK. And it asks, is this what you want? Transmit port for this, and for the analog bridge, and I always leave it at the default. Hit yes. Now, even though eventually I'm going to change it over to TGIF, you always want to put in a Brandmeister server nearest to you, and I usually use 3103. I could use 3104 also. There's just 3 in here. I want to say there's 4, but this list only has 3, but I use 3103. And I hit tab down to OK and then hit enter. Okay, now here's your enter your personalized hotspot password configured via the Brandmeister self-care if applicable, otherwise leave as the default. And I'll show you where to find yours or actually change yours. But you can come right down here to self-care and change it right here under hotspot security, because this is technically going to serve as a hotspot, but it has a radio attached, so that's where you would change that password. But you would change it here, and I'm going to type it in, but it will be masked out for the video. Tap down to OK, hit enter. AMBE server, external AMBE server, or Zoom server. I don't use one. I'm still learning this part right here. As far as all this goes for right now, for this particular setup, I leave it all the way it is. I hit OK, hit enter. Input for initial configuration finished. INI files configuration will start. We're going to leave it at yes, hit enter, and wait. Initial configuration finished. DVSwitch server is up and running. Hit enter to menu. Now, we've got the initial configuration done. Now we need to do the advanced configuration. You can come in here and configure other stanzas such as frequency, power, lat long, your location. This process will ask you the parameters in info section for the mmdvm._bridge.ini. Hit enter. Now, my little node is going to be 146.400. For receive, it is 146.100. I did make a mistake here, so I got the opportunity to change it now. Power's at 10. That's my latitude, my longitude, my height, my antenna, my location, and the description of the bridge. I leave it at default. The URL, I'll leave it default, and it saves the changes. And then you come down to configure your favorites for talk groups and reflectors. I don't know what the purpose of this is just yet, so leave it alone for now for this particular setup, and we'll advance on it later in another video. The ad hoc menu and macros I don't touch just yet. Additional DMR networks. This is where you would go to configure your primary network away from Brandmeister and over to TGIF or other DMR networks like DMR Plus. We're not going to do that just yet. We're going to return to the main menu. Here is a tool area for SD card cloning, upgrade, language, reboot, and shutdown. I've never gotten the SD card clone feature to work. I'm not exactly sure if it just clones your whole setup or just your DVSwitch setup. Not clear on that yet, but we'll get back to it someday. But you can go into this menu to reboot and shut down if you'd like. These are the credits for DVSwitch, and this is where we exit DVSwitch to go to the command prompt in your SSH session. And this is where I like to just reboot the node, just for good measure. Okay, our AllStar node has rebooted. And we've got to make some changes now to the rpt.conf file. These are some of the lines that we're going to add. But like before, I may have mentioned, you may not have seen it before, but I like to use FileZilla for this little purpose because rpt.conf is an enormous file, in my opinion, compared to the other files inside a HamVoIP AllStar version. So let's connect into our trainer node. Once I'm in here, I like to change the protocol from FTP to SFTP, which makes it a secure shell file transfer protocol instead of an SSH terminal session. But in the IP address of your local node, be sure and change the port to 222. Your username is always root and whatever password you set for it, and then we can connect. Now, the first time you connect, it's already going to say, hey, warning, potential security breach. The server's keys do not match. I've had it in here before under a different setup, so it's like, hey, we need to update that cached key. Just first time is the only time you have to do it. So once again, this section over here is the computer that we're on right now. This section over here is your AllStar node, and it brings you right to the root. But I like to come up here to the double dots, double click them, because it takes me where I need to be. Then we're going to double click Etsy, double click asterisk, and then we're going to come down here to rpt.conf. This is a very good reason why you need to back up your SD card at the very beginning. Now, if you want to take extra measures, find you a nice safe place. Let's do this. Just come down here anyway, create directory, and put backup or whatever you want to put so that you know what you're looking for. And right there it is. And then I'll just go ahead and drag over rpt.conf. That way I've got a copy over here in case I really narf this one up. But once you're on this one in the node, you can right click on it and go view edit, and it will use your default text editor program, application, however you want to say it. And this is your rpt.conf file. Stands for repeater.conf. It's what HamVoIP uses for all your settings for the radio side of the node. You're going to come down here first to the primary public node. In this instance, it's 576.333. This is the node number that allstarlink.org issues you once you're approved. And we want to go down to our private node, which, if you remember, our private node is 1999. That's the default node that you get when you set up. You get 1998 and 1999, and the first thing we do is change 1998 to our public primary node number. Occasionally, FileZilla will want to update that file that you're editing. Always say yes. So this is 576.333. We need to scroll all the way down to 1999. And I'll show you the fast way. If you have a good text editor, you can go to Edit, Find, and I type in 1999. Now, if you can see right here, there's 8 entries in this whole file for that number. And this is all got commented lines and comments, aka semicolons, in front of each line, which means they're there just for text. These aren't commands. It's a description. Now, there are other areas where you put a semicolon in front of the line, it just deactivates the line. This is text that you're just being made aware of. So, I'll start thumbing through here. This yellow one is my first one. And then we can start going through the number of them. Okay, so this one here, 1999, has brackets around it. That's the one we're looking for. We're going to leave it at 1999. But per our instructions, we've got a lot of commands here to enter. And we're going to leave 1999 alone. And we're going to start at RX channel and start selecting these until we get to that archive dir equals var/log/**temp. Copy it. And this is a small chronicle of the pain that I went through, but nonetheless, I got it to work. We're going to come down to the line inside of rpt.conf that starts with RX channel equals radio USB 1999. And there it is. This drop down line where it says example USB radio channel driver, we're going to put our cursor right after that, hit enter twice, go back up once, and this is the spot where I'm going to paste in all those lines, as long as it's after this line and before this line. Don't know why, it just worked. And I'm sure there's a logical explanation for all of this. These lines are in there, but this keeps them all together so you know where they're at. Hit paste, and there's all those lines from this file that ends with archive drive. We're going to hit file, save, open up FileZilla, update it to your server, and I'm pretty sure we can exit this out now and disconnect from our AllStar node. Now, if you refresh this page on your Supermon, you'll notice it says to log in again because we've rebooted a couple of times. Well, guess what? Let's reboot one more time.